So when I look at commercial aerospace, I'm much more interested in the commercial aftermarket players than I am the original equipment makers. So why is that? On the face of it, there's really only two companies globally that can make planes, Boeing and Airbus. Obviously a duopoly, that sounds like a great area of investment, and at times it is. But in my opinion, it's the aftermarket players that are better positioned. So the original equipment manufacturers have to compete very intensely with very similar products. If you look at a Boeing plane versus an Airbus plane, there actually isn't that much difference between the two of them. And it's a one-time sale, which means the switching cost is relatively low. For a buyer, they're really kind of just looking at which of these two companies can offer the better price. So that means the profits for the OEMs are a little bit tighter. Contrast that with the aftermarket. So within the aftermarket, let's say like engine makers, they produce an engine, they sell it to Boeing or Airbus at a loss, but then the engine is in service for 30 years. And every time that engine needs to be serviced or repaired, there's only one provider that can make the parts that go into it to fix it. And that's that company that sold it in the first place. So that makes the aftermarket really attractive. What's unique to the times we're in now is Boeing and Airbus are really struggling to make airplanes. If you bought an Airbus today, you would have to wait for 12 years for a new A320. So the backlog is insane. Obviously, we've all seen the issues that Boeing is having. They can't deliver planes quickly enough. So what that means is old planes need to fly more. And when old planes fly more, they need to be serviced more. The way this is playing out is older planes are not getting retired at the rates they used to. Instead, they're consuming aftermarket parts and services at a higher rate, so companies that provide aftermarket parts and services are really well positioned for growth. The engine manufacturers, for the last several decades, when they were selling the old variant of engines, those engines were sold mostly without a service contract. So a part broke and the plane owner basically had to pay for the new part to replace that. In 2016 to 2018 timeframe, these new engine variants started to be rolled out. So the 737 MAX has a new engine, the A320neo has a new engine. Those engines were sold with a service contract, which means it's similar to getting a service contract on your car, say. So the risk of repair is no longer with the plane owner, it sits at the engine maker. These companies used to have very little risk in regards to engine reliability, and now they have considerable risk. When you look at the engine companies, they earn very consistent CFROI, cash flow return on investment. They're very stable businesses, it's very predictable. One of the only things that can go wrong is the engine doesn't work. We saw this actually play out with Pratt & Whitney, who had to essentially take something like a $5 billion loss due to an issue with a part on their new engine. What I do when I'm looking at the investment is you've got to be careful that you're not paying too much for a stock that has this unpredictable but meaningful risk.